Have you ever wished you could go back to who you were before something in your life broke open? Before the loss, before the change, before everything started to feel different? My mom has told me about this art form that looks at brokenness in a completely different way. At brokenness in a completely different way.
Yes, so I have seen and heard about this Japanese art form called Kintsugi. And I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but Kintsugi is the idea of like when there's a piece of pottery, maybe it's beautiful and it's been made and it's ornate, but it breaks. The idea is that the pieces can be put back together but with this gold lacquer mix. And so when the pieces are then brought back together, they're not just glued and you try to like hide where the glue is and make it look all perfect again. The idea is that when you bring the pieces back together with this golden lacquer, you really see where the pottery was broken. You see that it has been repaired and now this new piece of art has taken shape. And so it's to me, it's always been such a beautiful image of how when things break apart, there is a way that things can be put together anew. And in fact, in that newness, there be something that can actually be more beautiful than it was to start with.
So, what you're saying is that with this cup or bowl that is broken, when it is put back together, the breaks aren't erased, but instead they become like part of the item's story. And rather than trying to hide and disguise it, it becomes highlighted in its golden color. And I think that's so opposite of what the cultural script kind of tells us to do. A lot of times you hear messages like, oh, move on and stay strong. Don't look back and don't dwell. Let's get things back to normal and how they were before. But this type of artwork really honors the process of healing and coming together in a different way than things were before, and how it's kind of impossible to go back to how things were before. And we wouldn't necessarily want to either.
That is, it feels like such an important piece that this Japanese art form can kind of demonstrate is that if you can make that brokenness part of the story rather than trying to, put it out of your mind or try to hide it or pretend like it never happened, what you have is a more full, more wide open piece of art that you can see has now, there's so much more richness there. There's so much more life to it. Right? It's not so perfectly shaped because, perfect is boring. But when you see this piece that has been put back together in different ways that now highlight there have been broken things here, that does say there is life that has happened here, and it is that life, in fact, that makes this piece more beautiful.
And I can think of so many examples of these types of breaks that divide life into a before and after this event or this unraveling took place. It could be the loss of a dream that you once had, of things not working out the way that you hoped in your career, or maybe a relationship comes to an end, or maybe loss of a loved one, or some sort of life changing diagnosis. And it makes sense that some things this big do change you as a person. And it feels impossible to go back to who you were before this thing happened.
That's right. I think that it's so understandable for us humans to desire to say, here's the piece of pottery the way it was. I want it back like it was. But the truth is that, as we go through things in life, there is no back to the way it was. I mean, we are different now because we have gone through some of the types of really large life things that you mentioned, a loss of community, a loss of a group that once held you. I mean, there are so many of these big breaks in life that really do shatter us in ways that were unexpected for us. And so I think as much as we would like it to be exactly like it was, there really is no going back to that. We are now different because of what we've been through. And so the putting together is going to be something new now.
Although these things can be challenging to go through, you gain new perspective and you won't see the world the same way again. Having this new knowledge and this new perspective can be something that makes us more complex, more interesting. Like you said, perfect is kind of boring.
And that is so true. Repairing with the lacquer, there's no real exact idea of how it's going to look when you put it back together. It's going to be a different object now. It's going to have taken on these cracks, and putting it back together with this gold lacquer is going to be something maybe you could not have imagined before. It's going to be a bit of a hope filled, creative filled, imaginative piece that now comes out of this. It is going to be something new that comes out of the brokenness. And so to be able to go with that, and to be able to kind of say, I am going to be a part of putting together something new now. It feels very empowering, and I think very healing in a lot of ways.
Yes, and another thing that I want to highlight is the uniqueness of these kintsugi pieces, how special they are. If you ask somebody which piece that they'd rather own, they're probably going to say the broken one filled with gold, because that is a whole lot more interesting. And I think of that in terms of humans too. When you talk to someone who seems like they have everything figured out and their whole life together, that doesn't feel as nourishing as speaking with someone who has lived a life with twists and turns and gone through experiences that cracked them but did not stop them from continuing. And
Yeah.
it means a lot when you talk to these people and they share some of these cracks with you and the scars and what they've gone through. It feels like such a way to connect with another human. It's just a lot more real.
It really is. It's like a way to hold on to our humanity with each other. I think in a lot of ways it's like, here's the story. Here's where it was hard. Here's how the pieces got put back together and came into something different. That really is a piece of sharing our humanity and helping each other hold on to our humanity.
Another thing I've thought about too is how often after going through something, there is a pressure from society to get okay and be okay again as soon as possible so you can go back to being a productive member of society. But healing is a process that you really just can't be rushed. And I remember you saying, Mom, too, that this art form, this kintsugi, is also an art form that takes time.
That's the truth, because one of the things that has to happen is each broken piece has to be handled so carefully, and it takes time to place the piece and go in with the gold lacquer. And
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point you brought up, because we live in a society with, my goodness, so many corporations. Like, if you've got a family member that's died, here's your 3 days to go bury your loved one and grieve and be back. I mean, it's such a harsh way to live. Even within our larger communities, we're seeing so much in the world that, it feels devastating, not just on an individual level, but as a community and as a nation level. So how do we then come back and take time to build up something new that paints something new into being? It's almost like this art form shows us a new way.
Another thing too to highlight is that with kintsugi, you do not choose how the piece breaks. It falls apart and shatters in ways that often feel random, completely uncontrollable, in a similar way to We as humans don't choose our losses, and we don't choose to break apart. We don't have control over that. But we do have agency in how we put it back together. We have agency in how we respond and how we begin to heal and come together and put the pieces of our life or of our art back together again. So we don't participate in the breaking, but we do participate in the becoming.
And the truth is, a lot of times, what you now have is a stronger piece of pottery after Kintsugi. What you had before was going to be easily shattered, but now that it has been pieced back together with this strong gold lacquer, you now have something that's stronger than before. And I think that's a beautiful piece to remember as well. And all the more reason to not hide that there has been
Right.
brokenness here and that things have changed here, because now what has emerged is more beautiful, it's stronger, and it has more life to it now anyway.
Yes, and trying to hide that pain and hide your cracks from others and look like you have everything together, that can feel so isolating and make the pain even worse when you feel like you're in it by yourself. But by allowing your imperfections to be visible, there is a shared humanity in that. People feel seen when you allow your cracks and your imperfections to show through, and then they feel more empowered to show their cracks to you as well.
Gosh, that is such a crucial point here, too, because I think one of the things that happens is when we allow ourselves, and let me be clear, none of this means it was worth it or that brokenness is, that we're not seeking this. But what it does mean is we have found meaning in the living through it. We have found meaning in holding the broken pieces carefully and in reconfiguring in new ways. And so one of the things that can also come from that is when we allow that for ourselves, it means we have a more open heart to see that in others. So if I'm okay showing you the gold lacquer of my broken pieces, this is where life got rough, I have a more open heart and a more kind eye to seeing your broken pieces. And so I think that again is so important in the communal space, is like we can grant each other that space and that grace to say it has been hard. We've rebuilt something new ourselves, and now we can rebuild something new together. I think that's such a beautiful point that can come from the inspiration of this art form as well.
This is just one of my favorite conversations and one of the best things that you've shared with me, Mom. So thank you everyone for watching. And I do have a question if you'd like to leave in the comments. In what ways have you seen cracks, whether in your own life or in the world around you? In what ways have you seen those cracks start to be filled with gold of some kind? Thank you again. My name is Michelle. That's my mom, Ashley. We appreciate you being here for this Secular Sunday. Please like and subscribe, and we will connect again soon.